Learning disabilities. What are they? What is it? Let us explore and unpack this term. The official definition, U.S. Department of Education, a disorder in one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding or in using language, spoken or written, which disorder may manifest itself in imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, read, write, spell, or do mathematical calculations. An imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, read, write, spell, and do math. Learning disabilities often, most often, manifest themselves in some literacy-related way, have a hard time reading and or writing. A specific learning disability means a condition within the pupil affecting learning relative to potential, and is manifested by interference with the acquisition, organization, storage, retrieval, manipulation, or expression of information so that the pupil does not learn at an adequate rate. What is an adequate rate? However, a couple things. It is a condition within the pupil. It is not something environmental or some circumstance that is interfering with learning. For example, post-traumatic stress disorder or acute or chronic stress. However, not knowing a student's background, often these things are diagnosed as a learning disability, especially students who come from lower social economic status backgrounds, from poverty. They are dealing with stress, which makes learning very difficult, and this is often misdiagnosed as a learning disability. The definition said it affects learning relative to potential. Now, this is a bit subjective. Putting numbers to subjectivity does not make it less so. It simply quantifies the subjectivity. So beware of the illusion of numbers and standardized tests, thinking that they are more than what they are. Essentially, the kid has trouble learning, and teachers know this without having to give a standardized test and an official diagnosis. But we have these tests and these diagnoses to get the kids the help they need. I know it's a bit wacky, but think about, when were you a less able learner? That helps us understand what children feel like. Think about the frustration that you felt. You wanted to quit. You were angry. And we were adults. What would you have liked that teacher or instructor to do? Think about that. Understanding empathy. The definition says there is a discrepancy between ability and performance. But who determines ability, and how is it determined? Again, by achievement tests, by IQ tests. These measure a very narrow range of thinking, and usually only school-related things. But know that a learning disability is not a thinking disability. It usually means that the student has trouble processing a certain type of information. However, humans are naturally hardwired to learn. That's what has helped our species survive. We connect one thing to the other, we find out about things. All humans will learn if the learning material is interesting, or presented in interesting ways, or ways that make sense to the learner, or way that's connected to that learner's situation. We need to rethink the term learning disability, because sometimes it's a learning certain kinds of things disability, or a learning school things disability, or a learning things you don't want to learn disability, or a learning unnaturally disability. When is a learning disability really a teaching disability or an educational inability? It's when we teach in ways that are not natural or developmentally appropriate for the child or adolescent. When we teach things that are of no interest and relevance. You need to learn this because you need to know it someday. Well, that is way out there. It's abstract. It's irrelevant. When we do not recognize the social and emotional and environmental variables that are affecting our students. They get off this wacky merry-go-round. They come to school at 8 in the morning, and we expect them, all students, to be ready and able to learn at the same rate? No. We try to standardize the learning experience, make one teaching size fit all. we are going to have, quote, learning disabilities. If we do not actively engage our students, we expect them to be passive learners. Or if we punish, manipulate, and control learning behaviors, we are going to get reactions to that. Now, emotions have a tremendous impact on cognitive functioning. If we have emotional disorders, that affects, that's empirical, there's a body of research that say emotions affect perception, attention, cognition, memory. But cognitive functioning also affects our emotions. When you have trouble learning, that affects your self-esteem, self-perception. So they are kind of interrelated. When does a learning disability then become an emotional behavioral disorder? You feel like a failure in class, well, your emotions are going to get away from you. When does an emotional behavioral disorder become a learning disability? You cannot learn if you are struggling with survival or struggling with some emotional things. Special understanding. We need special educators with special understanding. If all teachers, general ed teachers, had special understanding, we would alleviate some of the need for special educators. But how dare a school define or limit a child's potential? Oh yes, you have a learning disability. This is who you are. This is your number. This is all you can achieve. I'm at the age where I've seen many of my fellow classmates who are diagnosed as learning disabilities. These disabilities magically disappear. It's magic outside a school environment. So what does that tell us?